Hi, everybody, and welcome. We are going to try to do a focus on people running for office this week and possibly next. There are a number of promising candidates, I think, across the nation that deserve attention. And one of them is my guest right now. He is a retired Air Force colonel, fighter pilot, and was the former commander of the U.S. Air Force's basic military training in San Antonio, Texas. He is now running to represent the people of the 4th District in Oklahoma. Ladies and gentlemen, Jeff Pixley. Jeff, welcome.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. And before we get started talking about me, I just want to make sure that you know how much I appreciate the voice that you're giving to folks like me out there and speaking truth to power. I think the platform that you've built is pretty amazing. So I just want to thank you for doing that and for taking the time to chat with me today.
No, I really appreciate that. We're just trying to get the word out here, and having people like yourself in Congress is going to help. And take some of the weight off people like us having to rant and rave, because things will actually start to run a little bit better with people like you leading. So happy to have you here. I'm going to get into your background a little bit for people that aren't aware of you. You are the son of two Air Force veterans. You enlisted in the Air Force at age 17. Over the next 3 decades, you climbed the ranks from airman all the way up to colonel. You were an F-16 guy with 240 combat hours under your belt. You've investigated aircraft accidents. You have briefed generals and congressmen, and then you finished your career as the commander of the Air Force Reserve Officer Training Corps for Oklahoma University. You retired from the military, but apparently you were not done serving your country, because then you decided that you were going to run for office against 76, yes, 76-year-old Tom Cole, Republican, who is looking for his 13th term in Congress. So you get done with 30 years of service and sacrifice. A lot of people might be planning vacations by then. What made you decide that you weren't done and you were going to go ahead and step up and lead again?
That's a phenomenal question. In fact, and I agree with you. I see my run for Congress as a continuation of my service and a fulfillment of the oath of office I took way back in 1989 when I delayed enlisted. So the short version of the story is this: I was serving that job as the commander of Air Force ROTC at OU, and for those that don't know, that job is where you are the professor for and the commander for, mentor for folks that are college age students that are on their way to serve as officers in the military. And it's a phenomenal job, especially for an old guy like me, because you get a chance to take all your years of experience and your values and the way you've been raised in the service and be the one to impart that to them. So there's this raw clay you get to mold and prepare to serve, and building leaders of character, those who are ready to operate effectively in this really complicated world we're in. It's a blessing to have that job, and to get to do it at the same university where I was a cadet at one time was a really a great gift for me. I was supposed to be in that job for 3 years, and I started in 2023. It was supposed to go through the summer of 2026, and then uh, on the morning of February 15th of 25, so Sunday was the 1 year anniversary of this moment. I woke up early on a Saturday morning before dawn, and I opened my phone and I read the news that overnight the president had fired the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General C.Q. Brown, a fellow F-16 pilot and a phenomenal officer and leader. He had fired Admiral Lisa Franchetti, who was the chief of naval operations. And most alarmingly to me, the lead lawyers across all the service branches were fired. And when I read that, I realized I was at a personal crossroads. There might be a time, for the first time in my whole career over 30 years in the Air Force, that I would wonder if the orders coming down to me had received the scrutiny that they needed to from the lawyers. So I started kind of wargaming what that might mean in my head, and every one of the scenarios that played out was a bad one. So I realized that I had no choice. So when my wife woke up a couple hours later, I told her I had news. I said, I'm retiring from the Air Force, and I was retiring. I wouldn't say retiring in protest, although I've characterized it that way before. It was really just I looked at my own values and what my oath demanded of me, and said, I don't, I can't imagine looking my cadets in the eyes and teaching them the curriculum that I had been teaching for the last year and a half, where I talk about what our oath of office means. When I talk about what where leadership, authority, and responsibility are about. And look them in the eyes and say that all this is normal and it's okay. Just trust me, it's going to be fine. I couldn't imagine doing that. So I had a duty, I thought, to put aside my desire to stay in that job and do what the right thing and retire. And it wasn't until a couple of weeks later after I made that decision that I realized my path would be in public service. And the issue was now that I was going to retire as soon as possible, which ended up being September 1st of 25. That meant I could be a player in the 2026 election in the midterms. And for those who were in the military know we don't politicize the military. So I had never been political. I had my own political ideas and I had, private conversations at home about politics, but I was never overtly political. But now I could be. So when I decided to retire, I'm like, I'm going to be involved in this. What can I do? And it turns out what I can do is run for office to defeat an oath breaker named Tom Cole.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, it's just telling that you go from the 30 years of service, you wake up, you see what is happening to the military and the potential, politicization of the military or the attempts by a government that many would call fascist, and you say, well, I need to do something about it, and then you immediately did, and you stepped forward, not only to lead, but also to represent the people of the fourth district, your home space, if you will, and to give them something better. I know that Oklahoma is a state that has consistently been ranked in the bottom 10 in several categories to, education, quality of life, crime, all of those things. When you look around the fourth district and you look at somebody like 76-year-old Tom Cole running for his 13th term, what are the things that can be improved with just better leadership and not the same leadership that got you there?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. And the Oklahoma has struggled for a long time, but we haven't always struggled. And a single party rule for a couple decades has proven what that results in when Democrats aren't in power and Republicans are in power. And all the problems that Oklahoma has, and we have our serious problems. None of our problems can't be solved by two things: education and an election. And uh, I have to be careful, as about how I talk about folks in positions of power. But I'll tell you that the Republicans in this state have shown a disdain for their constituents. They are focused more on culture war issues and lowering taxes and gutting government. I think they've demonstrated a disdain for government, both at the state and federal level. And it seems every decision they make is meant to harm it. And for years before I was in politics, you would see people complain about the federal government. They wished it didn't exist. I think what it appears to me is both at the national and the state level, what has happened is people who hate government and don't want it to exist took it over so they could destroy it. And that's what's happening in the state of Oklahoma. Fortunately, we have, although it's been rough for the last couple decades, the Democrats in Oklahoma are stepping up. People are angry across the state, and we have an incredible slate of candidates across the state at all levels. We have more than 100 Democrats that are running across the state, including veterans. At least a dozen veterans are running on the Dem side, which I think is telling. We have our education, our economy, are things that people are feeling the impact every single day. So I think there's an excellent chance that a Oklahoma is going to change its complexion significantly in the 2026 midterms.
Has it been uncommon? Has it been uncommon in the past for so many Democrats to run for so many offices? Are you noticing a big surge?
Absolutely big surge, and we don't. Texas just bragged, and this is definitely worth bragging about. That the Dems have someone contesting every seat in the state of Texas, which is huge. Oklahoma has seats that go uncontested all the time. This is a very gerrymandered state, but there are Democrats everywhere across it, and there certainly have been elections where there was no Democrat on the ticket at all. And part of that is because there was, and this used to be a very blue state. That before I came here to college in the '90s, this was a blue state, had a history of being Democratic. But as the years have gone by, especially in the most recent years, with the culture war issues and kind of the embrace of this as a red state and identifying itself as a red state, it got to the point where Democrats started to kind of go into the closet and were afraid to talk about politics. And it would be easy as a resident of Oklahoma. And when I moved here, this was certainly the case that you could assume, looking around left and right based on people's yard signs or behavior or the things they said, that you were the only Democrat in town. And that wasn't the case, as it turns out. They just kind of went into hiding. What's happened now is people are so angry that they're willing to come out. And more importantly, I think, and this is where I think my candidacy matters, is we are fielding quality candidates. Because it's one thing to have a name on the ballot. And the last 4 cycles, Tom Cole has faced the same Democrat, and that was a good Democrat and a good person, but it wasn't a serious campaign. It had no chance of beating Tom Cole because of the size of the hill you're climbing there. This time around, we have incredible candidates across the state. I hope to include myself in that category, but the truth is, credible candidates who are real fighters. They're not just folks trying to make a name for themselves, not folks that are seeking great glory or to want to get good advertisements for their car dealership or something like that. These are
Right.
people that are emerging today, like me, who see the dangers of the territory we've waded into as a country, and they're not willing to sit around anymore, and they're willing to get uncomfortable. And as we've come out, the other people are kind of peeking from behind the bushes, saying, "Holy, they're it's safe to be a Democrat in Oklahoma again." And the meetings are getting more and more rowdy and more packed. And really importantly, we're starting to see reasonable Republicans and independents looking at us and saying, "I think maybe it's time to stop checking that box as single party ticket voting for the Republicans, because they've steered us wrong."
Yeah, I think it's just another symbol of what we're seeing nationwide with the massive, pushes towards blue in multiple elections since 2024. And I think people it almost feels like the veneer is coming off of, all of these promises that the Republican Party have pushed for so many years of, we're for the working man. We're going to help you have better quality of life and put more money into your pocket. And then to watch the disastrous decisions that have been sponsored by Congress and members like Tom Cole of things like the Big Beautiful Bill, which is directly impacting individuals as far as their health care and, multiple ways, facets beyond that. It does feel like the curtain is coming down a little bit, and people are becoming a little bit more aware that voting matters, and it's not just voting for, what somebody tells you is the boogeyman in the closet. It's voting for factual, tangible things like the right policy and putting more money back into the American people through services and into their paychecks than putting it into a ballroom, in the White House with the full support of Congress. Um, as as a future congressman and leader of the fourth district, because I'm manifesting this right now, Jeff, um, what would be the biggest things that you would address early on in your career?
That's a great question. And I've been consistent on this answer the whole time. And I always caveat it this way. I acknowledge the first thing I'm going to say may not to your average person on the street be the sexiest thing they want to hear, but bear with me for a second. The most important thing we can tackle in the next Congress is to restore constitutional balance. For a long time, we have been ceding power from other branches of government to the president, and in capable hands, that is dangerous and inconsistent with our founding documents and the way our government's supposed to work. In the wrong hands, it can be disastrous for our country. And the safeguards that we thought we had, it turns out, were illusions. They were all based on gentlemen's agreements that we wouldn't let scoundrels remain in positions of power. So the next Congress has to get to work to restore the power of Congress that it has ceded, so it doesn't remain essentially a vestigial organ. We need to take back strict oversight. use the power of the purse to ensure that the legislation that's passed is carried out, and serve as a check on presidential power. That is absent. And while that doesn't sound sexy, the second, third, and fourth bullets that you'll see on my walk card talk about the economy, which really matters, and affordability. And there's so many things we need to tackle on the economy. Our place in the world stage, both diplomatically and our Defense Department, need some serious attention, and dignity and respect for all people. Those broad categories matter, but if we don't fix that top one, the constitutional balance, and reestablish ourselves as a functioning, uh, you know, government with three co-equal branches, none of the rest of those matter. We have essentially what amounts to now a patronage economy, where if you want something done to benefit you, what you have to do, instead of being the best business person or the most innovative, or the biggest risk taker with a cool product to make it to market. The secret to success in American society now is show up to Washington, D.C. with a briefcase full of cash. That's not how it's supposed to work, and we have to fix that. So that's priority number one, and that's going to take all of us, including Republicans and independents that are in Congress as well. We need to reassert that this experiment that is approaching 250 years old is something we need to fight to preserve. That's priority number one for me.
Yeah, no, and I think you bring up a great point because at the foundation, the delineation between the three branches, uh, without that, we're witnessing what we're seeing right now, where you don't have a Congress that pushed back against these tariffs, which 90% of them are being paid for by Americans, right? Like the increase in costs is because we didn't have enough Congress men and women inside that building saying no, and they could have said no. We could have had senators say no.
Right.
We could have ended that. We're starting to see that happen now because yes, we're getting into an election year, and now they're worried about their seat, but they weren't there in the beginning when it mattered, when all of
That's
these
the
things
that's the
mattered.
most infuriating thing.
Yeah.
You talked about how many terms that Tom Cole has served. He knows better. Tom
13.
Cole has been around long enough. He knows better. He knows how this is supposed to work. And the fact that he has sat by silently allowing this to happen proves he did not understand the oath that he took, or he no longer believes the oath he took. Not only does he know better, he's the chairman of the House Appropriations Committee. He is one of the most powerful men in Congress.
Yes.
He individually had the power to put a stop to a lot of this, and he didn't. The game that they've got going on their side is a significant gaslighting game, and the gaslighting is not working on the American people anymore. You can't tell someone that they have food on the table when they don't, or they have medical care when they don't. We're not falling for it anymore.
Right. And this is just a reminder, everybody, because a lot of people forgot. We pay for these people. We vote for these people to represent us, not to be a stamp, a rubber stamp or a blank check for whoever is in office. And so I think that it's people like you serving in Congress is a reminder that we need representatives of us, people that come from our spaces, that know what we're going through, and that are going to bring the power of this country back into their lives in a positive way, and not just to benefit rich, powerful people, whoever brings biggest briefcase into Washington to play. Um, I know we talked about this a little while ago in the very beginning, but the politicization of the military. Today, Colonel Dave Butler was fired by Pete Hegseth for having an association with General Mark Milley. He was a former chairman and Joint Chiefs of Staff. Apparently, there are other individuals on the list who, because they had association with Milley, are on the chopping block as well. This is somebody, Dave Butler, going back through his history, has multiple decades of service, a lot of special operations experience, worked with Delta. He was, public affairs for JSOC, but he's just kind of the latest, I guess, casualty of this administration who, despite all the bravado and all of the alpha male, memeing, really do seem to be pretty soft when it comes to military veteran leaders doing the right thing and being experts in their fields and not being partisan. It feels like they're hunting out people who are nonpartisan and trying to remove them. As a former, leader and combat veteran, how does that make you feel when you see the Secretary of Defense with no real major military background reach down and start to remove people because he doesn't like them.
Well, it first of all, that fire is extremely troubling, but it absolutely validates the decision I made a year ago Sunday, because although I didn't have any direct ties to General Milley, uh, as the guy who ran basic training for the Air Force, my annual performance reports, the things that every year we get saying what a great job we did. The bottom line on those when I was in command down there were high praise for things like integrating transgender troops into basic training, which I did down there very successfully, and I think we did an amazing job doing it. We had great DEI programs that were like literally as written on my report, DEI leading the way. And I knew that if after the secretary's was was confirmed within days of his confirmation, he went to Fort McNair and gave a speech in a classroom that I'd been in personally before when I was stationed in DC. And he gave a speech that included a phrase or something along the lines of the dumbest words in the English language are our diversity is our strength. And when he said that, I realized that if he read my performance reports, the things that got me to be a colonel and got me all these important jobs working for Air Force One, my record of service, if he read it, he would want to fire me because he did not think I would be the type of officer he'd want to lead, despite having had those years of service. So it validates my decision to leave, but it's extremely troubling. And what's most troubling about that is, as you alluded to, he wasn't out there campaigning. He was just doing his job. He's a guy that was on the promotion list, and actually was going to take one for the team and say, "Pull me off the list. Let the other folks get promoted. Don't let my controversy, such that it is, hold you up." The fact that they're going in and targeting folks like that, I think is an omen of worse things to come, and it makes it even more critical, I think, that the Senator Mark Kelly case. Now we haven't talked about it yet, but I know you're tracking this, and probably your viewers no doubt are as well. The Mark Kelly case is an important one about the First Amendment, and it's about the allowing veterans to have a voice. And although there was a court win the other day, that gave him at least a partial win or a temporary win. My fear is that he is going to be victorious. I think on the merits he will win, but I fear that the judge or that the case is going to be decided unique to him and the other lawmakers. It'll be confined to them, which does nothing for the rest of us out there that have a voice. So, it's the minute I retired. In fact, if you look at my Substack, I retired on September 1st, and at 12:03 a.m. The day I retired, I had my first post on Substack talking about my oath of office and be engaging in political speech. We should be allowed to do that. And I think that we need legislation to fix it, because as it stands right now, if you just read the words of Article 88 of the UCMJ, it is left up to the eyes of the beholder. And Secretary Hegseth and the administration seem to be very willing to broadly apply that, and accusing people of being seditious for just saying things that are literally straight out of the curriculum. I pulled it up
No
after
doubt
it
in the book.
happened. I still have all my curriculum.
Yeah.
My curriculum in I was teaching at OU a year ago specifically includes the language about not following unlawful orders. They weren't making something up. They weren't being seditious. They were just reporting what has been taught to everybody that's been through basic training since at least 1990.
Yep. No, and I do think it's they're always trying to establish or push fear, in all realms, right? And I think this was kind of one of those shots where, hey, do not speak up against this, especially if you're military, retired military, or we will end you. And I'm a bit of an optimist sometimes. I fall for the fear. I get that moment of trepidation when they do things like fire CQ Brown, fire people like shit, here we go. But I am a bit of an optimist in thinking that Mark Kelly and being not fully exonerated yet, but the courts seem to be leaning in his direction for sure. I do think that may open the door for others to be like, well, if the courts aren't going to go after him, they're not going to go after me. And I think that is one of the things that this administration is fearful of. They would love for the military to fall in line with them and do whatever they're told. And a lot of my audience at times are worried about that. But I like to remind them that if that was the case, I think we would have military all over the streets. I think we would military in every city. I don't think we would be having an election in 2026. I think the National Guard would have gone into all of those different cities, but the courts stopped them. People behind the scenes, in my opinion, stopped them. I mean, we had the concern over Greenland, and then there were reports that several military leaders were like, "Are you fucking insane?" and and that went the way of the dodo a little bit, along with I'm sure other people pushing back on Trump. But I do think it is this attempt to give people the impression that the military is fully behind them when reality doesn't really gel with that. We've got Pete Hegseth, who has been the subject of multiple memes now since early last year because of his alpha bravado. It doesn't really resonate. Like the military sees people that they should respect because of their actions, not because of their words or their image or what they're trying to do. There was a pro-Trump organization that came out and said that the senior military leaders had basically said Hegseth had lost them. And so what I would say to my audience is there is an attempt to put fear into people that the military is going to do whatever they want, but I don't quite see that happening. I do think they're going to still attempt it though, and they're going to attempt to silence people like you, like silence people like Mark Kelly, because they don't want those individuals, especially when they're retired, to speak out against what they're doing. So yeah, I hope that you can continue to do so, and then get an even bigger platform when you get into Congress.
Well, and that's the funny thing is, I agree with you, and I think there's a reason to be optimistic, and people out there who are not military shouldn't confuse the incredible discipline that is being displayed by the members of the military right now with a full endorsement of what's happening. That's not how it works. Your job is to do your job in the military, and just because they're not speaking out vocally doesn't mean they're cheering this on. But they have a job to do, and it's rare for someone to be in a position where they have to speak out. And I hope that people will. But we, as retirees, and those who aren't confined by Article 88 or under the thumb of this kind of speech oppression, I think even have an increased duty to speak out. And to your point about, the bigger platform, the truth is nothing would be better for my campaign than if someone knocked on my door right now and locked me up or tried to lock me up for my free speech. That would be amazing. Uh, uh, Notoriety for my campaign, but that's not how I want this to go. What I'm going to do is continue to follow the law as I understand it, and now knowing what the intent is of the Secretary of Defense, do my best to stay in line with that to the best of my ability. And because I'm not going to do stunts to get attention. I'm going to lead with integrity, and it's frustrating, but it's all the more reason that voices that are not being silenced speak louder until those of us who uh, literally can lose. My way of putting food on my table is my retired pay. My only income is my retired pay, and I'm going to be as vocal as I can within the law and the rules as I understand it. But I would love nothing more than to see legislation passed or a court case come down that makes it crystal clear what's in bounds and out of bounds. In the ideal world, the First Amendment applies to those who are retired.
Yep, absolutely. And I hope that everybody sees this. Just again, it's just aware of the absolute circus that we're involved in right now with this current administration, where the military and military veterans are concerned about their ability to speak. These are individuals who have served years and decades in service to this country and sacrificed. Their families have sacrificed, their friends have sacrificed, their communities have sacrificed as they've gone forward as the 2% to protect us. And now they are the targets. So please be aware of that. Jeff, I wish you all the best. When is your primary and how can people support you?
Great. The primary is on June 16th. People can support me. And before I tell you how to support, I know you have viewers from across the country, and someone from Sheboygan maybe is thinking, what do I care what happens in the 4th District of Oklahoma? As I mentioned before, Tom Cole is incredibly powerful, and the terrible decisions he's making are harming all Americans. So everybody who's seeing this, if you're in the United States of America, I think you have a stake in the outcome of this election. So the way they can help me is go to pixleyforcongress.com. and that's on the screen here. Check me out, learn more. There's media on there. You can hear my longer forms of speeches. There's of course there's a way to donate. Act Blue donations are welcome. I know that times are tough. The Republicans have made that a reality, but with an audience like the size of yours, if across your audience everybody kicked in $5, it would change everything. So I'm never going to outraise Tom Cole, because I'm not going to take corporate money or APAC money. I'm doing this grassroots, so $5 across 150,000 people will change everything. And if you can't kick in, or don't want to, your name associated with a political campaign, like, follow, and share. That's social media. This is the future of grassroots campaigning. So if you dig what you see here, check me out on socials. I'm everywhere. Just Google me, my last name. I'm pretty Googleable. And share all my content and talk to your friends about me, because this matters. This is. I've done a lot of stuff. You were very kind in your bio. The most important thing I will have ever done in my life, besides raise 3 great kids, is this run for office. And if you can help me be successful, you'll be doing a service to your country.
Well, we wish you all the best. And for the audience out there, yeah, if you want to do something just on the side, just to stick a big fat finger in the eye of this administration, you could remove, the leader of a House committee like Tom Cole and replace him with Jeff Pixley. So I hope you consider doing that. Jeff, again, thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for all your service, what you're doing now, what you're going to do in the future. It really means a lot to people. We appreciate what you're doing, and best of luck.
Thank you. It was an honor to meet you face to face, man. Keep up the great work.
Take care.